Let me tell you what actually happened to you, not what you were told, what actually happened. From the moment you were old enough to sit in a chair, someone was teaching you how to follow instructions. Raise your hand before you speak, ask permission before you move, wait for someone to tell you that you did a good job. And you did, because that's what you're supposed to do. But the problem is, you never stopped. You're still doing it, waiting for permission to start the thing that you've been thinking about for 2 years, waiting for somebody to validate the direction that you already know is right, waiting for the situation to feel safe enough, guaranteed enough before you move and take action. That's not caution, that's conditioning. And it was put there deliberately. Here's what nobody explains to you about the world you grew up in. The entire system, the school, the corporate structure, the hierarchy system was not designed to produce leaders. It was designed to produce reliable workers, men who show up on time, men who don't ask uncomfortable questions, men who need managers because they never learned to manage themselves. That's not a conspiracy, that's just design. And you were the product. You were graded on compliance, rewarded for following the rubric, published socially every time you were deviated from what was expected. So you stopped deviating and called it maturity. Think about the men in your life who are actually winning, not performing, winning, actually winning, building things, leading rooms, making decisions that other people are afraid to make. I want you to think what actually separates them from everyone else. It's not intelligence. You know people smarter have less. It's not work ethic. You know people who outwork them and still stay stuck. It's not luck. Luck doesn't explain the pattern. Here's what it is. At some point, they stopped asking if it was the right time, stopped asking if they were qualified enough, stopped asking whether the people around them approved. They made a decision quietly, without announcement. They were no longer going to operate inside of rules that they didn't write. And that decision changed everything. Not immediately, not dramatically, but permanently. The men who stay stuck aren't stuck because they lack ability. They're stuck because they are still playing a game that is designed for them to lose. The game goes like this. Work hard enough and someone will notice. Be good enough and opportunity will find you. Follow the path and the path will lead somewhere worth going. And maybe for one generation that was partly true, but it isn't anymore. The path leads to salary, which doesn't even keep up with inflation. A title that means nothing outside. The building you got it in. A life that looks fine on the outside, but feels like nothing on the inside. And that is where compliance takes you. And most men arrive, they're confused because they did everything right. They follow the rules, but then the rules lied. So here's what separates the men that break out rather than the men who don't. It's not a strategy. It's not a hack. It's not a morning routine. It's a decision about authority, specifically whose authority you accept over your own life. Most men have outsourced that decision completely. Their employer tells them what their time is worth. Their social circle tells them what's acceptable to want. Their fears tell them what's possible. And the sad thing is, they listen. Not because they're weak, because they were never taught that they have another option. Here's the option. You decide. You decide what your time is worth. And you build towards that number instead of accepting what you're offered. You decide what you're building. and you move towards it, whether or not the people around you understand it or not. You decide what's possible, not based on what's been done before, but based on what you're willing to do that other people aren't. That's it. That's the entire difference. The men who win are not smarter. They are simply operating on their own authority, while everyone else is still waiting for someone to give them a handout. And here's the part that will bother you if you're honest. Nobody is coming to give you a handout. There is no moment where the system turns to you and says, look, now you're free. Now you can lead. Now you have permission. That moment does not exist. And the men who figured that out have stopped waiting for it. They granted it to themselves quietly without asking anyone, and then they put it to work. You were built to be managed. That's not an insult, that's just what happened to you. The question is whether you stay that way because the frame you operate in, the rules you follow, the approval you seek, the permission you wait for, none of it is permanent. It's just a habit, and habits can be broken. The men who lead, who build, who walk into rooms and own them without explaining anything, they didn't get there because someone showed them the door. They got there because they stopped waiting for one. You already know what you need to do. You've known for a while. The only thing left is to stop asking yourself, is this okay?